fandom, how's it going? Today we are going to be talking about probably one of the most legendary comic runs ever. It is regarded as a fantastic and near perfect run by a lot of people. We're going to see if that's true. And I am talking about Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Alan Moore, right off the bat, if you see Alan Moore's name on it, it's definitely a sign of quality. Despite what you may have heard about his recent work, his older work is fantastic. You're looking at Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Promethea, just the list goes on and on about the stuff that he's created, and he is regarded by almost everybody as probably one of the greatest comic writers in the world, even though he's kind of a little crazy. He thinks he's a chaos magician. I'm not kidding. Don't do anything to me, Alan Moore, if you see me in the street, please. Okay, so Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a character that was created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. Len Wein is a fantastic author. He does a podcast too right now, if I'm not mistaken, on the Nerdist channel. And Bernie Wrightson is probably one of the greatest artists that have ever lived, in my opinion. If you have not seen his illustrated version of Frankenstein, oh my god, it is amazing. It is just something that blew my mind when I saw it. Definitely pick up his Frankenstein version. Back to this though. Swamp Thing was a character that was created by those two guys. He was basically Alec Holland, who in short, it's a typical thing, he's experimenting on this thing that'll help create plant growth and things like that. An explosion happens, lands in water, and he's turned into the Swamp Thing. Okay. Fast forward, about 2 years later, Alan Moore comes on the scene. He's like, hey, I really want to do this character Swamp Thing. Bernie Wrightson and Len Wein, they're like, yeah, go ahead, we're done with the character. You can jump on it, issue 21. Yeah, issue 21. And pretty much Alan Moore jumped on, and he took the reins from there, and he created a fantastic run. This is stuff that is great and is referenced to this day. It's that good. So what you need to know. In Alan Moore's run, what he did was he took the typical Frankenstein story, and this is going to be a slight spoiler because I'm setting things up. This happens like in the first 2 issues, where Swamp Thing actually thinks that he is Alec Holland. It's not the case. What's happened is that Alec Holland's body just pretty much landed in the swamp, and then what was left of it, the memories and things like that, was secreted into the plants around it. And throughout a lot of this run, Swamp Thing's thinking, man, I'm human, I know I am. That's not the case. He's just basically a monster. And it's really the Frankenstein story when you look at it, and how he's falling in love with this girl named Abigail Arcane, and he tries to protect her no matter what. And there's this weird thing in the middle with tubers and how hallucinogenics, and if you know Alan Moore's writing, he probably was on a few hallucinogenics. It's a fascinating and interesting run, and he examines things like slavery, guns, pollution in the environment, and things like that. You are getting just fantastic stuff. Antoine Arcane is in this. Antoine Arcane is an awesome villain. He's probably Swamp Thing's biggest villain. Now, if you've read Scott Snyder's run on the character, what you are going to notice is that Scott Snyder actually took a lot from this run, because they're setting up, the Parliament of Trees and things like that, where in the past there were all these different people that played Swamp Thing. This is just something that keeps happening over and over again. A person dies, and the Parliament chooses somebody to be the representation of them for the world. Brilliant run. I can't really give too much away or tell you much more. This is very old school writing as well. The wording is very all over the place. It's very dense. Sometimes I found myself a little bit, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I found myself nodding off a little bit because it's so wordy. And if you are not used to that, it can lose you. So let's look at that. Let's look at some of the art. I love the art in this. I think it is fantastic. What's also interesting is that this also has the first introduction of the character John Constantine. And he shows up throughout bits and pieces of this whole run. If you've ever wondered, where did John Constantine get his start before his Hellraiser series? It's in Swamp Thing. Yeah. And I've been recently reading the Jamie Delano run of Swamp Thing, and not really. I'm not Swamp Thing of Hellblazer, and I'm not really in love with it. He kind of takes the character in a different direction than what you feel was really in the Swamp Thing run. In the Swamp Thing run, he seemed more confident and cocky and on the edge and, you know, on top of things. In Jamie Delano's run, he doesn't really come across as that. So I'm not really feeling that run as much. But like I said, if you are interested at all in Swamp Thing, this is where you start. You start at the Alan Moore run. It is great stuff. He took his time with it. It's probably 25, 30 issues around there. There's 6 hardbacks, 6 trade paperbacks that collect the whole thing. Definitely pick those up. What's also cool about this is that this was one of the reasons that we have the Vertigo line. Even though it says Vertigo on there, this was originally a DC book. This was not a Vertigo book. This was DC. And you have characters like Deadman and Swamp Thing and the demon Etrigan. He shows up in this as well. All these different characters, and Alan Moore writes them. He writes them so good. There is a cameo of Batman in this that is awesome, where Batman and Swamp Thing go at it against each other. If you've ever wanted to see Batman fight Swamp Thing, it's in this run. It is fantastic. It is great. You should definitely pick this up. So this is volume 1. These hardcovers are great. They're a little bit harder to come by. A lot of them are out of print, but you can still find them through second sellers. That's volume 1. And book 2. Book 3. Book 4. I really love this cover. Just the overall design about it. Book 5. Book 6. What you're also going to notice in here is that Alan Moore, when he was writing this series, if you saw him during interviews, he would kind of practice in the mirror. He would go, how would it feel to basically have like all the parts that make your voice made out of wood? So like when the Swamp Thing is talking, he has spaces in between his word balloons. Let's see if we can find something real quick. So he doesn't say a lot at once because you're getting a lot of spaces. Come on. Okay, here we go. And you see right there, he goes, how far, blank, blank, dot, 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 must I travel, dot, 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 to escape from them. You're going to see that a lot throughout the whole run. That was Alan Moore's bit with the character. So, this is volume 6. Pick it up. A lot of fun. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I personally did. It's great DC history. So yeah, comment, subscribe, bye.